The moment my mother raised her champagne glass, smiled proudly at my sister, and said, "I only have one daughter," every conversation in that ballroom stopped. Then she looked directly at me as if I were invisible. 50 wealthy guests laughed politely. My fiancé slowly let go of my hand. I stood there in my navy dress uniform, swallowing years of humiliation without saying a word. My mother thought she had erased me forever. But less than 10 minutes later, the ballroom doors opened, and when a decorated 4-star admiral rushed across the room, hugged me with tears in his eyes, everything my family believed about me shattered forever. My name is Rebecca Hayes. I'm 29 years old, and until my sister's engagement party, I honestly believed there was no sentence my mother could say that would still surprise me. I was wrong. The words that shattered something inside me weren't screamed in anger. They were spoken with a smile while holding a crystal champagne glass. I only have one daughter. She was looking directly at my younger sister, Emma. Then she looked straight through me as though I'd never existed. The ballroom fell strangely quiet before a few nervous laughs spread through the crowd. Around 50 guests, business executives, politicians, wealthy family friends, and community leaders, stood watching without knowing where to look. I stood completely frozen. Not because I hadn't heard cruel things before, because this time my own mother had erased me in front of everyone. I glanced down at the white navy dress uniform I'd proudly worn after flying home from an overseas humanitarian deployment only 36 hours earlier. For a second, I wondered if she'd even noticed it. Then I realized she had. She simply didn't care. Emma gave me an awkward smile, but never corrected our mother. She just accepted the applause as guests congratulated the only daughter in the family. That hurt even more. Growing up, Emma had always been my mother's favorite. If Emma won second place, Mom celebrated for weeks. If I graduated near the top of my Naval Academy class, she asked why I wasn't first. When Emma bought a designer handbag, Mom proudly posted photos online. When I spent 6 months delivering emergency aid after a devastating coastal disaster overseas, she never mentioned it once. I stopped expecting fairness years ago. Still, I never imagined she would pretend I wasn't her daughter at all. I quietly walked over and handed Emma the engagement gift I'd spent weeks choosing. "I really am happy for you," I said sincerely. She hugged the box but barely looked at me. "Thanks," she whispered before turning back toward her fiancé and their guests. That was all. No conversation. No invitation to stay beside my own family. Just quiet dismissal. I stepped away toward the edge of the ballroom, hoping nobody would notice how hard I was trying not to cry. Leaving would only create gossip. Staying felt unbearable. Then my phone vibrated. A short message appeared, running 5 minutes late. "Don't leave without us." No name. No explanation. Just those 6 words. I frowned. Before I could think about who had sent it, I heard engines outside. Several black military SUVs rolled slowly into the circular driveway, one after another. The conversations inside the ballroom stopped. Every guest turned toward the entrance. Something told me those vehicles hadn't come for my sister's engagement. And deep inside, for the first time that evening, I had the strange feeling that everything was about to change. The ballroom doors opened before anyone could say a word. 4 uniformed military officers entered first, followed by a tall man wearing 4 silver stars on each shoulder. His crisp white dress uniform seemed to command the entire room without him saying a single word. Every conversation stopped. Even the string quartet quietly lowered their instruments. The hotel manager hurried forward, looking nervous. Several guests immediately assumed an important politician or wealthy donor had arrived. My mother straightened her dress and smiled, clearly believing the distinguished visitors must somehow be connected to Emma's engagement. The Admiral barely noticed any of them. Instead, he slowly scanned the room. His eyes moved from table to table. Then they stopped on me. For a brief second, he simply stared. His expression changed from uncertainty to complete disbelief. He whispered something under his breath before walking toward me faster than anyone expected. The room instinctively parted. I stood frozen. "Sir?" I managed to say. He stopped only inches away. His eyes filled with tears. Then, Without caring who was watching, the four-star admiral wrapped both arms around me in a firm embrace. His voice trembled. My God. He stepped back just enough to look at my face again. I thought you didn't make it. The ballroom became so quiet that I could hear someone accidentally drop a champagne glass near the back wall. I felt my own eyes beginning to water. I'm still here, Admiral Collins, I said softly. Thanks to the team. He shook his head immediately. No, Commander Hayes. His voice carried across the entire ballroom. They're still here because of you. Every guest stared in complete silence. The Admiral turned toward the crowd. I don't know what you've been told about this remarkable officer. He paused. But every person in this room deserves to know the truth. He explained how our humanitarian task force had responded after a catastrophic typhoon devastated an isolated coastal region overseas. Entire communities had been trapped without food, medicine, or clean water. During one rescue mission, another storm struck unexpectedly, cutting off several evacuation teams. Against direct advice to wait, I volunteered to lead a rescue convoy through dangerous conditions to reach both stranded civilians and fellow service members before floodwaters overwhelmed the area. The mission was successful, the Admiral continued proudly. Hundreds of innocent people made it home alive because Commander Rebecca Hayes refused to abandon them. I looked down, uncomfortable with everyone staring. I was only doing my job, sir. He smiled gently. No. You are doing far more than your job. He placed one hand on my shoulder. For months, people across the command believed we'd lost you during that operation. His voice cracked again. So when I heard you were finally home, he smiled through tears. I wasn't about to let another day pass without thanking you personally. I glanced toward my mother. Her smile had disappeared. For the first time in my life, she looked at me as though she were seeing her own daughter for the very first time. No one spoke. The silence inside that ballroom felt heavier than any speech could have. Then Admiral Collins reached into a polished presentation case carried by one of the officers beside him. He carefully removed a dark blue velvet box. I had hoped to present this somewhere quieter, he said with a warm smile. But perhaps this is exactly where it belongs. He opened the box. Inside rested one of the Navy's highest humanitarian commendations, awarded for extraordinary leadership and selfless service. The medal caught the light as every guest leaned forward. Commander Rebecca Hayes, the Admiral announced proudly, on behalf of the United States Navy, thank you for reminding all of us what courage, compassion, and honor truly look like. He placed the medal in my hands before shaking mine with both of his. The room erupted into applause. Not polite applause. Real applause. People rose from their chairs one after another until nearly every guest was standing. Several veterans attending the engagement quietly saluted. Others wiped tears from their eyes. Business leaders who hadn't looked at me all evening suddenly stepped forward to congratulate me. Even the mayor, who had been sitting beside my mother's table, walked over and thanked me for my service. Meanwhile, my mother stood completely still. The smile she'd worn all evening was gone. She finally walked toward us, forcing a shaky laugh. Oh, Rebecca, she said loudly. You know I've always been proud of you. Before I could answer, Admiral Collins turned to her with calm professionalism. I'm glad to hear that. He paused politely. Because during every briefing, every mission, and every difficult day overseas, Commander Hayes spoke with gratitude about her fellow service members and the people she hoped to protect. He smiled gently. But she never once spoke about seeking recognition from home. The words weren't cruel. They were simply true. My mother lowered her eyes. For the first time, she had nothing to say. I looked at Emma. She seemed genuinely ashamed. Quietly, she stepped closer. Rebecca, I'm sorry. I gave her a small smile. I hope your marriage is filled with the love and respect every family should give each other. Then I turned toward my mother. I spent years trying to earn a place in your heart. I took a slow breath. I finally understand that respect isn't something you beg for. It's something people choose to give. She reached toward me. Please don't leave like this. I shook my head gently. I'm not leaving because of what happened tonight. I smiled through the tears gathering in my eyes. I'm leaving because I finally know where I'm truly valued. The Admiral nodded proudly beside me. Together, we walked toward the ballroom doors as the officers followed. Behind us, the applause began again. This time I didn't look back. For years, I had searched for acceptance inside my own family. Instead, I found something far greater. I found peace. And for the first time in my life, I walked away feeling seen.